I'm incredibly frustrated. The spending process in Washington has been broken for decades. I think we shouldn't be in this position in the first place. In fact, I support legislation that takes what I call the Wisconsin idea to Washington, D.C., and ends all shutdowns for all time. It simply says we're going to continue the government on 2-week intervals until a new spending bill comes to fruition. That's exactly the core idea of what we do at the state budget and the state of Wisconsin, why we never have a state of Wisconsin government shutdown. That said, we're here. How do we get out of it? My view is passing the clean CR that the House now passed weeks ago to get us back into regular order, have those discussions and debates on fiscal year 26 spending as well as other priorities. Yet we continue to see the Senate fail to be able to overcome the filibuster of Democrats in the Senate, and the consequences of the Schumer shutdown, unfortunately, continue to build.
And so a lot of Americans right now feel like we're in a stalemate, but there's talks of a deal with some Senate Democrats speaking with Republicans about passing the House's GOP's CR that you were just talking about in exchange for a vote on the ACA subsidies after the government reopens. Do you think that is a fair deal?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable approach. I've been open the entire time to having those negotiations and discussions about how we address the rising cost of healthcare, in particular, the enhanced temporary subsidies that were put in place during the pandemic that go to insurance companies. And so all of these things should be discussed. We simply want to remove the brinksmanship that is driving the negotiations and instead have a more cerebral, thoughtful process about addressing not only the rising cost of healthcare inside the Affordable Care Act, but the rising cost of healthcare across the board to so many American families.
Do you see this deal being appealed to Democrats? Do you see this deal working?
Well, hopefully it does. I mean, historically, when this brinksmanship has occurred in Washington, and again, the whole spending process is broken, the off ramp was a clean CR. In fact, Democrats in the Senate supported a clean CR 13 times during the Biden administration, and Chuck Schumer voted for it each time. What changed was the politics, and Democrats wanted to make a stand, I feel, against President Trump. But the consequences that the American people are feeling continue to grow, from air traffic controllers not getting paid and not showing up to work, as well as countless other impacts across the country. And so as the consequences of this brinksmanship grow, I'm hopeful that those in the Senate who are filibustering this spending bill to reopen the government change course, and more than happy to engage in those negotiations about higher healthcare costs on the backside of this.
Are you seeing Democrats come to the table right now, or are Republicans starting to come to the table? Are we seeing those negotiations start?
Well, those negotiations are ongoing. I mean, I'm in Washington, D.C. This week. I'll be home for Veterans Day events in the days ahead. But this is all about getting us out of the position that we're in. I think everybody recognizes the spending process in Washington's broken. I think we need to get ourselves back open and operational. And I do think those Democrats in the Senate that are choosing to filibuster this spending bill are beginning to have second thoughts as the consequences of that vote continue to build.
And I want to ask, too, about a bill you proposed, which would stop lawmakers in Congress from getting paid during the shutdown and deduct payments from the next Congress for each day the government isn't funded come another shutdown. Can I ask why you proposed that?
Well, members of Congress shouldn't be getting paid if members of the military aren't getting paid and the government's shut down. It's one more step in the process to force members to the table to reopen the government. I'm for giving my pay in a period of time when others aren't receiving theirs. But I think that should be the law, that no member of Congress should receive pay if the federal government is closed and members of the military or air traffic controllers or so many others aren't receiving their pay for their work.
And I want to move now to SNAP benefits, because this obviously a big conversation amid the shutdown. 700,000 Wisconsinites not receiving their food share benefits. Obviously, we did see federal judges rule to bring back some of those contingency funds in the interim period, but it's not certain when those funds will be in the hands of Wisconsinites. What do you say to those individuals right now who are frustrated with both sides of the aisle because they are feeling the impacts at their dinner room table?
Well, I would say call your Democratic senators and say pass the clean CR that the House passed now over a month ago to make sure that the consequences and the chaos that are resulting from the Senate's actions end immediately. This can end immediately if the Senate passes the clean CR. These are the consequences that we knew would come if we were unable to have the Senate move forward and pass this resolution. Again, it's Democrats in the Senate who are filibustering against SNAP benefits. It's incredibly painful, beyond frustrating. And I think what we need is more pressure to end the filibuster of Democrats in the Senate against paying SNAP, against paying members of the military, and against reopening the government.
And I want to ask too about something you mentioned a couple of times during this interview, which is passing that clean CR, as you say. I spoke with Representative Pocan earlier this morning, who says that that CR isn't exactly everything Democrats want. He didn't call it so far clean. He says there's things that he would like to see changed in that before he would support it. What's your response to that?
What we mean by clean is it says we're going to take the funding that was going on before and pass that and move that forward. That's what everyone calls a clean CR in Washington. And again, it was passed 13 times during the Biden administration with the support of Senator Chuck Schumer. There were some of my colleagues that wanted to put in place a whole host of policies in that funding bill. What we actually did is we had a thoughtful conversation and said, no, let's lower the brinksmanship. Let's make a clean CR, meaning let's just continue funding as it was before, going forward with no other adjustments or changes, exactly as we do in the state of Wisconsin at the state level. And I think what's happened is some Democrats voted against that in the House, including the member that you just referenced. I think what they're having is a little bit of buyer's remorse because they've supported clean CRs in the past. And unfortunately, the consequences that we warned of are the exact consequences that we're experiencing right now. Real people are being hurt by the decision of Democrats in the Senate to filibuster a clean CR, a policy that has been passed time and again in Washington, D.C. by both sides of the aisle. Again, I'm beyond frustrated that we're here in the first place, but the goal should be to reopen the government, pass the clean CR, and prevent people who are getting clobbered by the policy decisions of Democrats in the Senate who continue this filibuster.
And one last question for you here, Congressman. How do you see this shutdown ending?
I think you'll actually see senators end their filibuster and come to the table. And then we should have, as many people want, self-included, the broader conversation about lowering the cost of healthcare and addressing the cliff that Democrats put in place for the temporary subsidies that go to insurance companies. All of those are proper policies to be negotiated and discussed. We should just be doing that while the government's open and we're not allowing Democrats to hold hostage the SNAP funding that so many families need in our state.
So you see Democrats coming to the table to end this?
Every time we've gone into a shutdown before, the off-ramp has been a clean CR. That was the starting point of the Republicans in the House. In fact, that was the bill that was passed with the support of a Democrat in the United States House of Representatives. Senator Fetterman, a Democrat in the United States Senate, says Democrats own this. And so there are Democrats who support the clean CR, just not enough to overcome the filibuster. But as the consequences of their actions continue to build, it's my belief that Democrats will ultimately come to the table and provide the relief that Republicans have passed now well over a month ago.